I kicked my fiancé's unhinged ex-wife out of our wedding after she tried to ruin it by exposing my past. A week ago, I, 27F, got married to my husband Daniel, 33M. Unfortunately, instead of enjoying our newlywed life, we were suddenly hit with a wave of negativity, mostly from Daniel's family, because we kicked his ex-wife out of our wedding after she tried to sabotage our day. For context, Daniel was married to Melissa for 2 years. They had been dating since high school, and then Melissa unexpectedly got pregnant at 18, even though she and Daniel had always been careful. When Melissa told him the news, Daniel made it clear right away that he didn't want to become a father so early, since they had just started college, but he emphasized that he would support whatever decision she made. Melissa's parents also asked her not to become a mother at such a young age, but she insisted on keeping the baby. Daniel and his family respected her choice, and eventually she gave birth to a son, Lucas. Melissa had to drop out of college to take care of the baby, since her parents weren't very willing to help her. Daniel and his family sent her monthly child support payments as agreed and provided support in every way they could. Daniel regularly saw Lucas whenever he came home from college and eventually grew very attached to him. Although he hadn't initially wanted to become a father, he later became grateful that Lucas had come into his life and gradually started taking a more active role in his son's upbringing. Melissa was close to Daniel's parents, so she and Lucas often stayed at their house. When Daniel finished college and found a good job, his parents had a serious conversation with him and said they wanted him to take responsibility and marry Melissa, so they could become a real family and raise Lucas together. After long discussions, Daniel agreed, and he and Melissa got married. Later, Daniel admitted to me that he was never happy in that marriage because he was too young and felt that his parents had pushed him into that decision. He wanted his son to be happy and thought that marrying Melissa was the right thing to do. Unfortunately, their relationship quickly became toxic. I should mention that Daniel is a very handsome man and sometimes attracted attention from other women, which Melissa absolutely couldn't stand. He never cheated on her and never even flirted with other women. But Melissa quickly started showing aggression and extreme jealousy due to her own insecurities. If Daniel came home even 10 minutes later than usual, she would start screaming, accusing him of cheating and claiming that he was sleeping with his coworkers. Daniel tried every possible way to calm her down, but Melissa would threaten him, saying she would run away with Lucas or that Lucas would never love a cheating father. Their arguments became daily occurrences, and Melissa even went so far as to start messaging Daniel's female coworkers on social media. Then she would casually bring their names up in conversation and ask Daniel whether he found them attractive. Even if Daniel answered no, because he genuinely didn't find them attractive, she would jump up and start screaming, calling him a liar and accusing him of sleeping with them. She also hated it when Daniel went over to a friend's house on weekends, even though they just spent the whole day playing video games. She insisted that Daniel always take Lucas with him. Daniel agreed, not because he wanted to give in to her demands, but because he didn't mind his son spending time with him and his friends. Daniel's friends were great guys. They all loved Lucas, so no one ever objected when Daniel brought his son to their gaming meetups. Overall, Daniel tried with all his might to help Melissa deal with her insecurities and wild suspicions, but unfortunately, she never changed. After about a year of marriage, Melissa's behavior became unbearable. Daniel was constantly walking on eggshells in his own home. Any minor inconvenience could turn into a massive argument. She monitored his phone, demanded access to his social media accounts, and would often accuse him of deleting messages or hiding conversations. Eventually, the situation escalated to the point where Melissa started showing up at Daniel's workplace unannounced. She would sit in her car outside the building, watching who came in and out, and then confront him later about women she had seen near him. This caused serious issues at his job, and his supervisor warned him that personal drama could no longer interfere with work. Daniel suggested couples therapy multiple times. Melissa refused, insisting that she wasn't the problem and that Daniel was the one acting suspicious. Whenever he tried to set boundaries, she would accuse him of not loving Lucas enough and threaten to take the child away from him. Things finally reached a breaking point when Daniel came home one evening to find the apartment trashed. Furniture was overturned, dishes were broken, and Lucas was crying in his room. Melissa was hysterical, screaming that Daniel had ruined her life and that she had sacrificed everything for him. That night, Daniel took Lucas and went to his parents' house. The next day, he contacted a lawyer. The divorce process was long and ugly. Melissa fought him on everything, from custody arrangements to child support. She told everyone who would listen that Daniel had abandoned his family and destroyed her future. Despite this, Daniel continued to provide financial support and fought hard to remain an active part of Lucas's life. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. Melissa was granted primary custody, but Daniel received regular visitation rights and continued paying child support. Daniel was devastated by how everything turned out, but he tried to focus on being the best father he could be under the circumstances. After the divorce, Melissa's behavior didn't improve. She constantly interfered with Daniel's visitation time, showed up late or canceled at the last minute, and used Lucas as a tool to manipulate him emotionally. Daniel documented everything and kept communication strictly through text or email to protect himself legally. Around 2 years after the divorce, Daniel and I met. I met Daniel at work. I had joined the company about a year and a half ago. At first, we were just colleagues, casually talking and occasionally having lunch together. Over several months, our friendship grew. We discovered shared interests, similar senses of humor, and a natural connection that made our time together enjoyable. Eventually, Daniel asked me out on a date, which was a pleasant surprise because I had always liked him a little but never expected anything to happen. I had never dated a colleague before, believing it inappropriate to mix work and personal life. However, Daniel showed me that it could be done respectfully. Our relationship developed naturally. We transitioned from colleagues to friends and then from friends to a couple. He was one of the kindest and most honest people I had ever met. When we started dating, Daniel was completely open with me about his past marriage. It was painful to hear how much he had suffered due to Melissa's toxic behavior. We supported each other and changed each other for the better, and from then on we were always together. Everything was going perfectly until Melissa found out about me about 6 months into our relationship. Of course, I had expected some trouble, knowing her personality from Daniel's stories, but nothing could have prepared me for the level of hatred she displayed at our first family event. I had already met Daniel's parents separately before, and it was his parents who invited me to Thanksgiving dinner. Melissa was also invited because Daniel's parents always tried to include her in family events. When Melissa arrived, she completely ignored my presence. Even though I stood right next to Daniel, she hugged him, touched his hair, and complimented his new hairstyle. Daniel, visibly uncomfortable, gently pulled away from her and held me close, emphasizing that I was his girlfriend. I smiled politely, but Melissa shot me an icy glare and immediately left. The tension lasted throughout the dinner. Melissa continually made sarcastic comments aimed at me. Sitting at the same table, she repeatedly mentioned that Daniel always preferred blondes, and that she never imagined he would end up with someone like me. Every word she said was carefully chosen to hurt me, and as the evening progressed, her attacks only intensified. I tried to ignore her hostility, focusing instead on talking with Daniel's parents and enjoying the celebration. Daniel, noticing my discomfort, quietly reassured me, hugging me and showing his protection. From that moment, it was clear why Daniel had divorced Melissa. She was completely unbearable and full of hatred for no reason. Unfortunately, this was not a one-time event. Melissa continued to behave terribly. One day, I caught her spreading nasty rumors about me to Daniel's cousins and other relatives. She told them that I was the reason for their divorce and that I had stolen Daniel from the family. Daniel and I confronted her together. I told her that I hadn't even started working at the company when they divorced, so her accusations were absurd. Melissa just smirked maliciously and accused me of supposedly pursuing Daniel for his money and tricking him into a relationship. Daniel's brother asked her to stop and be more respectful toward me, but she ignored him. At one point, Melissa even sent me insults from a fake Instagram account. I was certain it was her because the messages contained personal information only she could have known. It felt like living in an endless soap opera, one we never signed up for. Most upsetting of all was how she dragged Lucas into this conflict. I had met Lucas several times before Daniel and I started dating, so I was familiar with him. Daniel never asked me to take on a parental role, and I never wanted that. I just wanted to be a good friend and a positive presence for Lucas in difficult moments. Once for his birthday, I gave Lucas the roller skates he had been dreaming about. He was thrilled, and seeing his happiness made me feel joyful. However, the following weekend I saw him wearing his old skates. When I asked why he wasn't using the new ones, Lucas admitted that his mother had told him he couldn't keep them and had thrown them away despite his tears and pleas. It hurt me so much that I could barely hold back my tears. Daniel was horrified and immediately spoke to Melissa. She said I had no right to interact with Lucas or give him gifts. She claimed it disgusted her that Daniel allowed me near their child, and that it made her question him as a parent. When I moved in with Daniel, Melissa initially didn't allow Lucas to visit him, claiming she couldn't trust him while I was around. Eventually, Daniel's parents had to intervene and convince her to let Lucas see his father. After that, she made life even more complicated, insisting I couldn't cook for Lucas and forcing him to bring food containers every time he came over. That poor child had to heat containers for every meal, which broke my heart. After some time, I began preparing proper homemade meals for Lucas so we could all have dinner together. We decided not to tell Melissa. It was absurd that we had to lie about such things, and I couldn't understand why Melissa acted this way. 3 months ago, Daniel and I got engaged. It was a wonderful surprise, and I knew without a doubt that he was the one I wanted to spend my life with. Daniel's parents insisted on throwing a party in our honor. I invited colleagues and childhood friends. Everyone knew it was an engagement party, and I was confident Melissa wouldn't attend. Unfortunately, she did show up, and I braced myself for a difficult evening. As expected, she started telling my colleagues and friends that she had been the first woman in Daniel's life, even though everyone already knew that. It was painfully awkward how she tried to draw attention to herself during our celebration. I chose to ignore her and enjoyed the party otherwise. As the wedding approached, my mother and Daniel's mother were fully immersed in the planning. We worked tirelessly to ensure that every detail reflected the love and happiness we felt. From selecting the perfect venue to coordinating colors and flowers, our days were filled with endless discussions and planning. Exactly 1 week before the wedding, there was an unexpected knock at the door. I was working from home and Daniel was on a business trip. Thinking it was my mother, I opened the door and found Melissa standing there. It was completely unexpected, so I asked if everything was okay. She looked at me impassively and said she needed to talk. I nodded and let her in. Sitting in our living room, Melissa bluntly told me that I had to break off my engagement with Daniel. I was stunned and asked what she was talking about. Then she said she knew about my dirty secret from the past. I smirked and told her to get to the point because I wasn't going to play her stupid games. Melissa claimed she had learned from one of my childhood friends, whom she met at the engagement party, that I had a miscarriage at 21. I froze. It was deeply personal information. Indeed, I had accidentally become pregnant at 21 and had a miscarriage, which was a traumatic experience. I was very young and unaware of the pregnancy, but losing the child was still profoundly painful. I had grieved for the life I had barely begun to understand. Only my close friends and family knew, and they helped me through that difficult period. When Daniel and I started dating, I told him myself. So I wasn't worried about Melissa revealing it to him. It wouldn't have been a surprise. However, I was furious that she tried to use such a painful and vulnerable topic to manipulate me. I firmly told her that she had no right to discuss my past or threaten me, since everyone close to me already knew. Melissa was clearly not expecting that reaction. She started screaming, calling me horrible for having killed a child, and promised to do everything so that everyone would know how disgusting I was. The argument escalated until Melissa stormed out, leaving me feeling confused and upset. The next day, when Daniel returned home, I told him about this strange conversation. He immediately called Melissa to put her in her place. He scolded her for trying to come between us and emphasized that everyone already knew about my past. He defended me, explaining that I had been too young to understand what I was going through, and that she had no right to use this information against me. In anger, Daniel revoked Melissa's invitation to the wedding. She screamed back that if she wasn't allowed to come, then Lucas wouldn't either. They argued for a long time but couldn't reach an agreement. I knew Melissa wouldn't give up easily, but Daniel assured me he would never let her come between us again and, if necessary, confront her publicly. On the day of the wedding, the atmosphere was full of happiness and excitement. I eagerly awaited the moment I would finally marry the love of my life. After walking down the aisle with my father, the ceremony began. At that moment, Melissa burst in with Lucas, wearing a long cream-colored dress. Everyone turned at the unexpected commotion. Melissa shouted, "Stop the wedding!" I went pale. I turned to Daniel, who was red with anger and embarrassment. Melissa loudly demanded that I not marry Daniel, or she would reveal my secret to everyone. My eyes widened in horror, and the guests exchanged confused glances. Lucas looked helplessly at his father, clearly not wanting to be involved. Melissa came toward us shouting, "What a terrible person I am," and claiming I didn't deserve a man like Daniel. Before I could respond, Daniel stepped between me and Melissa and ordered her to leave immediately, or he would call the police. Melissa's eyes widened in surprise. She clearly didn't expect such decisiveness. She began yelling at Daniel, asking how he could even consider marrying someone like me. By then I was in tears and our happiest day was turning into a nightmare. Fortunately, two of Daniel's cousins, who were also my bridesmaids, intervened calmly but firmly. They escorted Melissa out of the hall, warning her that if she didn't leave voluntarily, they would call the police, which would seriously affect her life. Melissa eventually backed off, continuing to shout insults and accusations, while Daniel insisted that Lucas stay for our wedding. The atmosphere remained tense, but Daniel's parents and mine came to hug us, seeing my tear-streaked face. Even Daniel's parents, who had always maintained good relations with Melissa, were shocked by her behavior. The officiant asked if we should continue the ceremony, and Daniel, hugging me, nodded. We decided to save what was left of this once joyful day and, despite everything, tried to enjoy it. After the wedding, we went on our honeymoon and didn't check our phones. When we returned, we found numerous messages from Melissa's sister and some of Daniel's relatives, claiming we had been too harsh toward his ex-wife. Melissa also sent me several extremely unpleasant messages, which I didn't even read to the end. Could it be that we really acted as if we had kicked Melissa out of the wedding? Before we move on to updates, I suggest everyone comment on what they think about the entire situation. I believe that the author and her fiancé acted completely reasonably. Moreover, as in many other stories with toxic people, it was necessary to address this in advance to prevent the woman from showing up at the wedding, which would have kept the day joyful. Everything would have been fine. But things happened the way they did, and the heroine shouldn't feel guilty about it. Update 1. Thanks to everyone for the comments and support, since the story was posted a week ago. Clearly, most of you agree that we did the right thing by removing her from the wedding, and that we should have involved the police earlier due to Melissa's toxic behavior. You're right. We could have involved the authorities sooner, but we were mindful of Lucas and didn't want to complicate his life. We always tried to resolve everything peacefully. It also turned out that one of my childhood friends, who had been at the engagement party, accidentally revealed my secret to Melissa after drinking too much. She repeatedly questioned the friend about my past, and our friend slipped while intoxicated. She apologized when I spoke to her, but unfortunately, our relationship will never be the same. I understand it was a mistake, but Melissa exploited it to try to ruin our wedding. The most painful part is that she not only used my past against me but also involved Lucas. Daniel understands this perfectly, and is now consulting with a lawyer to establish a custody arrangement that prevents Melissa from continuing to make our lives difficult. After the wedding, life slowly began to settle into a more peaceful rhythm. Daniel and I moved into a larger apartment to accommodate Lucas and create a comfortable home for all of us. We decorated it together, carefully choosing colors, furniture, and personal touches to make it feel warm and welcoming. Lucas gradually adapted to the new environment, feeling safe and happy. Melissa, of course, did not give up. At first, she tried sending numerous messages and calling repeatedly, trying to convince Daniel to allow her to visit Lucas without restrictions. Daniel firmly refused, emphasizing that our home is private and that she cannot manipulate the situation. He also blocked her social media accounts to prevent her from harassing me. One day, Melissa appeared at the school Lucas attends. She tried to speak to him during recess, attempting to involve other children in her schemes. Fortunately, the school administration quickly intervened. They contacted Daniel and me immediately and made it clear that Melissa's actions were inappropriate. From that moment, Daniel filed a formal complaint to ensure Melissa could no longer disturb Lucas at school. Over time, Lucas developed a strong bond with me. I never forced him to see me as a mother figure, but he started calling me Aunt Yulia, which made me smile. I realized that trust and love are built gradually. I try to be supportive, attentive, and consistent, helping him feel safe and loved, while Daniel handles his role as a father with care and patience. Melissa's attempts to disrupt our lives gradually lost strength. She would occasionally send short, spiteful messages to Daniel, but he ignored them. Lucas became more independent, and we made sure to shield him from unnecessary stress. He is now flourishing in school and enjoying activities like skating and drawing, and I couldn't be happier seeing him smile. Daniel and I have also strengthened our relationship. We communicate openly, share responsibilities, and support each other emotionally. The challenges we faced with Melissa only brought us closer together. Our friends and family see the strong foundation of trust and love we have built, and their support is invaluable. Sometimes I reflect on how different my life could have been if I hadn't met Daniel, or if Melissa hadn't been so toxic. But I choose to focus on the present and the happiness we have now. I am proud that I stood my ground, defended myself, and protected Lucas from unnecessary trauma. The lessons I've learned about patience, empathy, and assertiveness have made me stronger. We also made sure to involve a lawyer to formalize Lucas's custody and visitation schedule. Daniel's lawyer prepared a plan that ensures Lucas's well-being and limits Melissa's ability to manipulate or intimidate him. It has brought us peace of mind knowing that the legal framework protects our family. Now, when we celebrate birthdays, holidays, or simple weekends together, we do so in a calm, joyful, and supportive environment. We laugh freely, play games, and create memories without the constant fear of interference. Lucas often says that he feels loved and safe, which is the most important affirmation for both Daniel and me. I also learned the value of self-respect and boundaries. Melissa's attempts to interfere taught me to be firm and to assert my right to a peaceful life. Protecting oneself emotionally and mentally is not selfish. It's necessary for healthy relationships and overall well-being. Our story is not perfect, and challenges may still arise. But we know that together Daniel, Lucas, and I can overcome any difficulties. Our happiness is built on love, trust, and resilience. I am grateful for the people who support us, for the love we share, and for the opportunity to create a harmonious family despite the hardships we faced. Melissa is now largely absent from our lives. She occasionally posts on social media but rarely contacts Daniel directly. We have learned to focus on what we can control: our actions, our household, and the happiness of our family. The rest we leave behind, not allowing negativity to dictate our future. To anyone reading this story who has faced toxic ex-partners, jealousy, or family drama, you are not alone. Standing up for yourself, establishing boundaries, and protecting those you love is not only justified, it is necessary. Life can be joyful even after such challenges, and it's important to focus on love, kindness, and creating safe environments for yourself and others. Daniel and I are now planning a small second celebration for our marriage, just with close friends and family who support us. Lucas is helping plan some fun games and activities, and it warms my heart to see him so involved. We have learned that true happiness comes not from avoiding conflict entirely, but from how we respond to it and protect the people we love. Our journey continues full of hope, laughter, and love. We have learned that no matter how toxic the past may be, the present and future can be shaped by compassion, courage, and unity. Life has given us challenges, but it has also given us an unbreakable bond and a family that thrives on mutual respect and care.